everybody! Welcome back to Bela and the Fig podcast. Ew, is my voice feeling like, you know what I mean? I need some water. Hello everybody, and welcome back to episode 3. So this week, what have I been up to? I started watching Handmaid's Tale. And I'm super excited to talk about it. Trump made a Bible with the Constitution in it. I haven't gotten man, I really should talk about it, but I'm just taking the podcast in a whole other direction and I haven't researched much, but maybe next week we can talk about Trump and the Bible with the Constitution and this new Americanized evangelical fundamentalism. It's like a nationalist. There has to be a specific name. There is a specific name for this type of religion. Oh, I'm fucking dumb. Christian nationalism. So I could go on and on about Christian nationalism and how that religion is very culty, to say the least. But no, we're not talking about that, even though that is such a wild hole to fall down. I have another wild hole to fall down because women are getting punched in the face in New York City.
I have fallen victim to the men in New York City.
He goes, sorry, and then punches me in the head.
Out of nowhere, this man just came up and hit me in the face. I'm like actually in shock right now. I'm just like walking home. But literally just got punched in the face by a homeless man. Like literally walking to the gym.
When I saw the TikToks on Instagram, okay, I need some caffeine. So earlier in the week, I was having my nightly jaunter. Is jaunter the correct word, or is that like something weird? The definition. Jaunter. Someone who jaunts. Thank you, dictionary. Nightly scroll. So I was taking my nightly scroll on TikTok when I came across a woman who had a giant welt on the side of her forehead, temple, really, and essentially she said some guy randomly started, bumped into her and then punched her in the face. And that was so insane to me. Not only was it insane, but the girl, I think her name is Hallie McGugan, she actually went to my high school. And I just thought that was really crazy. It was just a very, very much small world moment. But Hallie McGugan, I remember you from our film and broadcasting class. So good on you for... She's great. She's super big and popular on TikTok. So good on you for, launching your career. Sorry you got punched in the face. That sucks. But it wasn't just her. It was happening multiple times. Let's look up how many women so far have reported being punched in the face in New York City. I should have had this data already up.
Okay, so pause. I had to put this in after the fact because while I was recording, I was really nervous and on the spot, and I couldn't find the data I was looking for. So here it is. At least a half a dozen women have posted videos to social media saying that they were attacked, and at least 2 have filed police reports.
So a number of women are being punched in the face around New York City. Apparently, it's women who aren't really paying attention to their surroundings, so they will be on their phone or just kind of not looking around, and apparently often they will get bumped to kind of jolt them out of what they were focused on, and as soon as they look up from their phone or whatever, they get decked in the face. And then obviously if you get punched in the face, you're going to be like kind of coming to for at least 5 seconds before you can really get a grip on what just happened. And then by 5 seconds is a good start to get the fuck out of there. So a week ago, when all these reports first started coming out, The NYPD spokesperson chose not to respond. And there was one guy who did get arrested, but apparently they let him off the hook, essentially. Didn't even have to pay bail. I forget what the specific word is called, but essentially it's a written agreement between the court and the person that they can just go, and they have his word, his written word, that he'll show up to court if there is court. Great. He went off scot-free. It currently says the NYPD spokesperson did not respond when asked if the department was looking at the attacks as a group. And it was unclear if the incidents were connected. That's what the police said. Apparently, this is a game called the Knockout Game, which originated in St. Louis. Shout out. I'm not from there or anything, but shout out, I guess. And the Knockout Game, yeah, essentially is just not a game. It's just an excuse for mentally unwell people to physically assault other people. Yay! You want to know what's so crazy, though? And this is going to be a little bit of conspiracy Bailey coming out. Initially, when I first saw this popping up a week ago, I know I'm a little late to the game because of when I record these podcasts, but I did all my research as soon as it was coming out. Like, bam, bam, bam. So when I did type what was happening into Google and looking for news articles, some of the news articles that popped up were really interesting. And this is just Bailey's it's called this will be called Bailey's Conspiracy Minute. So essentially, I typed in what was happening, and an article from Fox popped up and an article from CBS popped up. There were no major news companies reporting on this at the time. I think the Post was the only big one. But the other companies like Fox and CBS, you want to know what they were reporting on? I'll read you the headline. Woman in custody after punching female officer in the face, NYPD. That was Fox. CBS was NYPD police officer punched in the face by a woman stopped for jumping a turnstile. That's what it's called, right? Turnstile. I'm pronouncing it right. The spinning thing. Anyway, I just thought that was really weird. Like, the news was essentially, it seemed as if it was a misdirection from what was currently going down. And the fact that two major publications decided to post at the same time about a woman punching a police officer in the face and not about random women getting punched in the face on the street. I don't know. I just thought it was really weird. I will let everybody draw their conclusions where they want to, but that was just a very weird coincidence. So, I mean, everybody knows, like, typing in the keywords for something. For example, Tana's podcast canceled. Really smart marketing decision, because every time somebody types in Tana canceled, her podcast is going to come up instead of her cancelable controversies in the past. So in a sense, I think the media also does that, where it's like, oh, look, you just typed in woman getting punched in the face in NYC, and we're going to give you articles about a woman punching someone in the face in NYPD, not what's actually going down. That's all. That's Bailey's Conspiracy Minute. Boop, 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 boop. I won't lie, this whole situation got my little grinding gears oiled up and moving again in my head. By the way, in my head. I couldn't help thinking that this was potentially a coordinated attack on women from a specific group of men who are very upset with women. Would I like it to just be a weird, isolated incident of one guy going berserk and that's that? Yes, of course. That would be best case scenario. That it's just one crazy guy. A more realistic scenario, in my opinion, would be if this was a group of men who share a very similar frustration and hatred towards women. I feel that with the rise of Andrew Tate and Fresh and Fit, this alpha bro, traditional value kind of movement that seems to have somewhat formed an alliance with the incel community, it would not surprise me at all if tensions began to rise to a point where these men are starting to act out in a physical manner, not just behind closed doors now, but publicly. So I do believe it was only a matter of time before we saw a more extreme act of defiance against women and their climb to true equality with their male counterparts. And God damn it, I really don't want to fearmonger, and I don't want to be like, oh, this is what I saw on the news and it's very scary and women need to be aware of their surroundings and blah, 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 blah. No, if anything, stay strapped, I guess. And I feel that in our wave of feminism, we are moving towards, because each wave of feminism essentially is building upon the work and the backs of the women that came before us. Hold on, I have all my notes. I got my notes for the generations. Yeah, we use each wave of feminism as a stepping stone to propel us forward even more. So the first wave of feminism can be considered from the 1850s to around the 1920s, I believe. And this wave of feminism was basically just arguing for basic human rights and necessities for women, like voting. This was definitely the time in which women were able to pass the 19th Amendment. So this second wave of feminism was one that really called for a reevaluation of traditional gender roles. The big major movement that happened in this era of the second wave would be Roe v. Wade and the Equal Pay Act. Low-key still arguing for the bare minimum. Like, we want jobs, we want our own money, we want education, just the same as men. So the third wave of feminism is during the 90s, and this one really focuses on tackling a lot of pre-existing issues, again, really piggybacking off of the second wave. We still have a lot of sexual harassment in the workplace, shortage of women in positions of power, or just even different career fields in STEM, in the medical field. It's you had a lot of nurses, but you didn't have a lot of doctors that were women, right? And now you have the fourth wave, which has not yet fully been defined. I would say we're still kind of tackling what we started in the 90s and somehow even going back a few steps with Roe v. Wade. The Barbie movie hit the nail on the head when Ken went to the real world and he was pretty much like, so you guys aren't really doing patriarchy really well. And the guy's like, no, we are. It's just more hidden.
You guys are clearly not doing patriarchy very well.
No, no, we're doing it well. Yeah, we just hide it better now.
Oh.
This wave of feminism has yet to truly be defined and has echoes of similar wants and needs from the third wave of feminism. However, I believe we are starting to see glimpses of what this fourth wave of feminism might truly be able to accomplish. And this starts in the country of South Korea with a movement called 4B. Essentially, this movement started as a pushback against a country that had begun and continued to normalize violence against women, extreme beauty standards, cases of femicide, revenge porn, harassment, spy cam crimes. I mean, the list goes on, and obviously these crimes were overwhelmingly committed by men. This was a society that was very much not in support of women's autonomy. This 4B movement, women are essentially leaving the patriarchy behind entirely and are refusing heteronormative relationships and are refusing to bear children. Crazy. The movement didn't start out that way. It started off with women who just were shaving their heads and refusing to go outside wearing makeup and stereotypical sexualized clothing within the male gaze. But now the movement follows these 4 B's. B, essentially, BI, is a prefix in Korean that means no. Kind of how in America our prefixes are like non or un. It's like no. But anyway. So the first no is the refusal. I'm going to read this to you. So the first no is the refusal of heterosexual marriage. The second no is refusal of childbirth. The third no is refusing to date man. And the fourth no is the rejection of heterosexual relationships. So, although this movement started off by shaving heads and not wearing makeup, it has transformed into a very extreme and powerful movement of women leaving behind men entirely and saying, if you want a society to control, if you want a society to make money off of, you need us. Without women, you're not going to have a society to even run. That is what this movement is representing. And I do believe this ideology is making waves and it is trickling down into the Western societies as well. And this ideology looks more like women refusing to lower their standards within dating and marriage, even if that means singleness forever. I think as a woman, we often look to our mothers and we see what they've had to endure and give up their lives, their goals, their dreams, their bodies, their mental health in order to raise and fulfill their duty as what our society deemed was wife, marriage duties. And don't get me wrong, I think motherhood is a very beautiful thing. It's very beautiful in its purest form, but I think motherhood has been corrupted by this patriarchal society. But unfortunately, America has created a system where motherhood cannot flourish or fully blossom without extreme consequences to the autonomy of that woman. For most, motherhood and fatherhood, they are not equal tasks at all. According to Paul Dolan, a professor of behavioral science at the London School of Economics, women who are single, who have no children, are the happiest population subgroup. Dolan explains that men benefit from tying the knot because they calm down. AKA, they go on autopilot while their wives become their mommies, and men become less inclined to take risks, earn more money, and they live longer. Marriage for men means more money and an easier life. Nolan notes that men actually become healthier physically within marriage. However, for women though, studies show that middle-aged married women have an elevated risk of both mental and physical conditions in comparison to their single counterparts. And according to Professor Emily Grundy of the University of Essex, she says there's evidence that women spend longer on domestic tasks than men, which is also known as the term kin-keeping. And she thinks that they also do more emotional work. When a man becomes a father, he's everything that he was before he was a father. It's a label that's added to a collection of labels. You know, he's still a golfer, he's still a CEO, he's still a graduate. Maybe he's a doctor, master's degree. You know, you're your hobbies, you're your career, and then you're a father. Nothing really changes for a man when entering fatherhood, except for maybe an hour or two in the evenings. And in many cases, becoming a father actually makes this man even more appealing in the eyes of our society. The same is not true for women, though. Not at all. See, when a woman becomes a mother, that is a label that seems to take over and override everything she was before that. You are a mother first and foremost, and everything else is somewhat of an afterthought. And even if you do choose to continue in your career or continue to develop in a skill or schooling, you are labeled a bad mother because you haven't given up your autonomy for your children. Not to mention, her body is completely changed and destroyed from carrying a child. And I know it sounds shitty, but the one thing that often elevates a woman in this society is her sex appeal. And it isn't right, but it is just how it is. And even that is stripped from her. Because her body, I mean, for God's sakes, her ligaments are ripping apart like a fucking transformer as her body is designed to push this baby out. And now everything is out of place. And if you don't have the time and the money and the resources like a Kardashian, then it's going to be really hard to get back to the state of your body before you were pregnant. And if she's not bouncing back and functioning at a rate in which she was before she had her child, then the household and her marriage are going to take a hit from that as well. There is no break. So the idea of being a single childless woman is an idea that many women my age and below are seeing as very appealing. We cannot help but look at the absolute shit our mothers had gone through and want to choose a better life for ourselves. And that might not look like being as extreme as some of the women in South Korea, but it looks a lot like extreme choosiness, raising the bar and not lowering it, even if that means deciding to be single forever. For women, being in a relationship means to often compromise. And unfortunately, compromising to men looks a lot like women just forfeiting their control and their autonomy. I myself have been a victim of this. And it really is something that just happens so slow, but so fast that you just get trapped in it. In order for me to maintain that previous relationship that I was in, I had to change who I was. I had to change my dreams. I had to change my goals. I had to change my appearance. I had to limit my freedom, who I hung out with, who I was allowed to be around. God damn it, I couldn't even ride in a car alone with another man. I couldn't even get in an elevator alone with another man. But that is tied more so to religious themes. It often is the imagery of the frog in the pot of boiling water. The heat is slowly being turned up and slowly being turned up until before you know it, you're being boiled alive. And I'm forfeiting control. I'm forfeiting pieces of myself as a compromise to keep this relationship happy and functioning until I no longer know who I am anymore. And I don't blame women for not wanting to do that anymore, not wanting to be someone's mother, wanting equal contribution to the relationship and what each person brings into the relationship. More and more women are becoming happy to stay single and even just forming lifelong friendships and partners with other women and deciding to do life without men. And I'm not saying this is the answer, because I don't think we will be able to find a healthy society without meeting on equal terms with our male counterparts. However, I do believe extreme selectiveness and even a decline in deciding to have children is a strong and fast way to get a government to take you seriously. Or, in the worst way possible, turn into The Handmaid's Tale, which I know I mentioned at the top of the show, and it is really scary, and it is also, in the worst way and weirdest way possible, low-key comforting. As someone with extreme religious trauma, it's often a complex issue that's very hard to talk about with people. And so watching it, I guess, there's a sense where you feel somewhat understood in a very sick, weird way. Maybe that is the topic of my next conversation with my therapist. A society can react two ways. They can start to truly see women as equals with a life to live more than just baby making and pleasure for men, or they can rebel against women trying to take their power back and their bodies back and see it as an attack. And I think potentially what we were seeing in New York with this weird string of women being punched in the face, that very well could be a result of men seeing women's selective behavior as an attack on them. With any major advancement, there will be major pushback. And so I guess I just want women to be alert. I want women to have... Wow, this episode isn't really funny, guys. I'm sorry. This one is a little serious. And we need to continue to fight for a standard in which we are not getting the short end of the stick. A lot of men are going to see that as an attack on them because a lot of them don't want to change and they don't want to have to rise to this new standard. But if we continue to not lower the bar, it forces society to change. It is going to force a portion of our society to see women in a new light. There would be no society without women. I mean, sometimes I do love looking up old matriarchal societies and how they viewed women and their bodies and their ability to create life and even their menstrual cycles. It's very, very, very beautiful. And I think this beauty of womanhood has been completely torn apart by our patriarchal society. I do think in this new wave of feminism, in the fourth wave, this might be the inciting incident to finally being seen and treated as equals. I think a lot of men out there are more receptive to understanding women and what we have gone through than we think. And the answer is never to hate men, but to help them and guide them in understanding the silent suffering that a lot of women are going through. And like I said, I do think there are more men than we think that are very receptive and want to do their part and they want to help. And we also need them because men are way more likely to listen to other men than to listen to us. And our rage will fall upon deaf ears if we don't have a mutual mouthpiece. So I love my boyfriend to death, and he is one of the biggest allies I know in feminism. And I don't even think I would be doing this podcast without his encouragement. And so there are men out there, and the solution isn't to completely isolate ourselves from men. I don't think that is helpful for anybody. But keep that bar raised and keep your standards high. And I think more and more we will be able to find equal ground, I guess. I know this was not the happiest, most go-lucky episode ever, but it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I find it hard to make jokes about this, I guess. And so I guess I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Call your moms, love on them a little bit, and keep having conversations. Keep having conversations. Yeah. So, anyway, call your mom and keep having conversations, I guess. That's the homework for this week. Anyway, my name is Bailey. Thank you so much for listening. And I will see you all next week, where hopefully we can dive into Christian nationalism. Anyway, goodbye.